welcome to Snack Chats. Tina and Gina
Hello.
here.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Okay, we are talking about a fun topic today, which is not just the medical complications of eating disorders. There's a lot of information out there, but more about when our clients are struggling with the medical complications of eating disorders. How do we set boundaries to support their safety and containment? And really being able to support them when maybe they don't have access to higher level of care, or are we referring to higher level of care, and how do we manage this? Because definitely in higher level of care, it can be a stressful situation, but if you are in outpatient or lower levels of care, like IOP, things like that, you can worry about the safety of your clients a lot, and that can obviously impact the care we're providing. So
Yeah,
just kind of
hashtag
overview.
medical containment boundaries. That's going to be
The
the
title,
hashtag.
medical
Yeah,
containment boundaries. Yes,
yeah,
medical
yeah.
containment boundaries. How do we do this? I'm all about setting safe containers. So how do we make a safe container for our client to play within, to experiment
Yes.
within? So,
Yes, to stay within the
uh,
food punning, we're going to put them in a Tupperware container and try to lock them in. Yeah. Oh my
oh
gosh,
gosh,
that's so
Tupperware. We're so 90s. We're 90s kids.
Ugh, it is a thing. The lens I want to kind of project is Gina and I are talking through a harm reduction lens. So while what we are saying, some people may be like, oh my gosh, that's like possibly very scary. It's like, yes, it is a harm reduction lens. So just because we're speaking from this does not mean it's a one size fits all or that you have to function through this lens at all, but it is kind of where we're speaking from.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So there's we can even touch on like first step, would be a higher level of care recommendations and things like that. But what do we also do when these things might not be accessible? So
Mhm.
just kind of overview of like, yes, medical complications are extremely common or can happen with eating disorders. All eating disorders can have medical complications. Individuals in all body sizes can have medical complications from things like malnourishment, purging, if there's self-harm, other behaviors, risk behaviors that they're taking that regard to their mental health, can definitely lead to medical complications. We'll share some resources on where to learn a little bit more about those in the show notes as well, if you're really wanting to dive in, and we can talk more about them in another, snack chat as well. But for here, we're really looking at like, how do we keep these clients safe? And I think one of the most important things we can do is collaborate with medical providers. I think there's a lot of pressure on dietitians to like know everything and be able to do a lot of over functioning to keep our clients safe, when we actually can rely on other providers to help with that. And so really initiating collaboration with a medical provider when you're first starting to work with a client. Are you getting those releases of information? Are you contacting the doctor? Are you discussing concerns you have? Are you letting medical providers kind of take the lead on what medical stability means? And are you working with even a medical provider who is aware of what that is with eating disorders? Or do you need to kind of provide some additional information and concerns there? So things like, are they taking labs? Are they looking at more than just labs? Are they looking at orthostatics? Are they looking at blood sugar? Are they looking at EKGs? We could talk about all these things so much. And kind of once that is established, are you able to say, okay, what do you think? How frequently should labs be taken, doctor, right? Like, what is their recommendation on that? So we're not trying to hold all of the need to put all those boundaries in place.
You know where my head like immediately went is like, Gina and I are both in Austin. We had this like resource of like a really specialized provider and facility that it was like really easy to like basically send clients to. We know that the care is going to be really great in regards to medical aspects. We don't need to navigate, we don't need to micromanage. And then that kind of went away and disappeared, blew up. Yeah. And so like what Gina's talking about is amazing. In an ideal world, we would basically send this client to this provider, and the provider would be able to provide specialized care, and we would be able to kind of be not hands off, but like trusting in that care is being provided. And then we kind of immerse ourselves into our reality, which is most of these medical providers are PCPs, and primary care physicians do not hold, their purpose is not to hold a specialty of like medical containment, nourishment. They don't hone it in. They kind of expand out. And so a lot of times they are assessing an individual like, are you immediately unstable or do I need to send you to the emergency room? And so a lot of times we're sending clients in to get evaluated and their status is really being minimized and they're being sent away and like, well, my doctor said I'm fine. And it's like, that's fine. Okay. And so like regroup. And so how I kind of handle that is I am kind of prepping the client. We're building a medical resume. I'm sending them kind of with a sheet that's saying like, here are the issues, here are the struggles, here are possibly some recommended labs. I want you to know that the client is engaging in the following behaviors. Please assess for the following reasons, right? And so we are kind of coaching these kind of non-specialized medical providers in the situation. And a lot of times they may be like, okay, cool, I'm taking your guidance and going from there. So they might need that guidance, which is somewhat frustrating, but the
Oh, it's so
reality.
hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so many more specialized eating disorder providers were available in all cities. You know, we're in a very highly populated area and we don't even have a lot of specialists here.
Yeah.
We're like basically in a medical desert for
I know.
providers.
Anyone want to go back to school?
I do. I really want to go become a doctor. It
Come
might happen one
on,
day,
Gina.
but I need to not have toddlers to be able to make it happen. So
True.
that's good.
Yeah.
Give me like 15 years, you know,
Oh, okay.
and then the 8 years of school. So who knows what's gonna happen.
Oh my gosh.
When I'm 90 years old, I'm gonna be like, I did it. I'm a
I
doctor now.
did it. Never,
I
never
did
too
it.
old. Yeah.
Never too old to be a medical provider. Okay. With that said, so Tina laid all of that out fabulously. We often are having to hold a lot more responsibility maybe than we want and getting to learn and be really aware of what to ask for, what labs to look at. We are going to talk more about some of that in other times as well. But really being able to then communicate effectively with our clients about these things, right? So initially, we would love to be able to say, you know, you're not really medically stable right now based on what the doctor's saying, based on vitals, based on these signs, based on behavior level, higher level of care might be the best option for this person. However, we also all know that that is way easier said than done, maybe financially, insurance, family situations, locations of higher level of care. It's just not always accessible for a lot of people. They may not be safe for someone culturally, based on their gender, you know, just all sorts of reasons why someone might not be comfortable or safe going to a higher level of care. So is it an option? Absolutely. And a lot of times it can be so helpful. And there might be times where that's not possible. So when it's not, and we have someone who is kind of medically at risk, what do we do? And so some things to think about would be like, how often are they having medical visits? What are some minimal nutrition intake recommendations? What does exercise look like? What are the purging behaviors looking like? And what kinds of things can we put around this? Not to necessarily say that we're going to like, we can't ever force someone to change, right? We can only provide information for them and they have to make that choice. So can we provide some things that they are willing to do to keep them safe within that container? So an example would be visiting with their doctor as frequently as the doctor says or recommends, or maybe we're making that recommendation if they have a kind of general PCP who didn't, you know, necessarily have a specific recommendation. Are there minimum amounts of intake that we can provide for them? What are the exercise limits that they might be able to stay within? Or from a harm reduction lens, what are they doing after movement? Like how are they eating or hydrating or resting, you know, after movement? Same with purging, what kind of harm reduction behaviors can we use? Like electrolytes and, you know, things that we can help support some safety within that. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Tina, to talk about
Yeah.
how you talk about this with clients. Like, how do you actually set these limits without coming from a very rigid, like you do this or I'm not working with you kind of
Right.
lens, which I think is what we hear a lot in eating disorder treatment. Gain this much weight, follow this meal plan, no exercise, contract, do this, or you're getting kicked out of treatment, or I'm not working with you anymore. And it kind of creates this very punishing kind of mentality. Like I just get like so anxious hearing that and thinking
Mhm.
about what that experience might be like for a client.
Yeah, I like me personally, my practice is a non-contract based practice. So we are never providing behavior contracts or signing behavior contracts with clients. It is a consent-based treatment. So but people are entitled, providers are entitled to provide those contracts if that is kind of the style. We're not going to dictate that, but like me personally and my group, we just don't function that way. So instead, it may be presenting it to the client, like kind of what Gina was saying before, like, hey, based on the XYZ evidence, your vital instability, your weight trend of this, your food intake, your purging behaviors, at this point, it is warranting further medical evaluation and containment. And so what I'm proposing, and this is a conversation, so I want to hear your thoughts. I know in the past we have talked about treatment. Is that still something that you're not wanting to do, or can I provide other resources for more support, not higher level of care, but more support? Okay, yeah, what does that look like? Well, there are different support groups, free, low cost, insurance based. Are you willing to talk about support group resources? Are you able to increase your sessions with me, your therapist, other support members? Are you willing to go to a doctor on a regular basis to have medical evaluation? Are you open to me consistently obtaining vitals and weight on an XYZ basis? Again, this is all individualized, right? So in those aspects of like, this is what I'm proposing. Are you open to doing some sort of picture accountability with your food intake? Are you willing to supplement an electrolyte drink after a purging behavior? Are you open to taking a multivitamin to make up for mineral deficiencies based on your restricting? All of these things can provide that containment that is helpful for further evaluation. The client then can assess and go from there. Typically, I have this set up in like different stages. So like what we're going to start with is this, and we'll try it for X period of time. If that doesn't work, then we kind of move up to the next stage, which is a little bit more acute type of recommendations. Okay, we try that for an extended period of time, and that might be increasing sessions, adding support group. Then we go to the next one because things aren't changing and you're continuing to stay unstable. That most often that last tier or stage is treatment, right? And so figuring out accessible ways that maybe this individual can get the treatment they need and deserve, or figuring out a way that you can plan that treatment on your own. So I never engage it in a threatening manner, and it more is a conversation. A lot of times people are going to be like, I'm not doing any of that. So then it's really based on your comfort level of whether or not you're going to move forward with this client, recognizing that their stage of change is just not ready for change. They're in pre-contemplation or contemplation, or they're willing to do 1 of 6 or 2 of 6. And that's awesome. That's better than nothing.
Yeah, I love the way you worded that at the end, where it's like, you can do all of this, you can say it in the way you said it, you can make it really client-centered and really compassionate, and they can still choose to say no, right? Like they have that autonomy. And so then what do we do? And, we want to make sure everyone knows that it is okay if you're feeling unsafe with a client to choose to refer that client out, or provide some different resources that is not you. You don't have to hold that anxiety and fear and medical instability for that client if it doesn't work for you.
Right.
And you also have the right to like try and experiment with that and get supervision, or like, ask for more support in another way if you want to work with the client but aren't quite sure how to do that, and want, some more support around that. So supervision, referring out. Tina and I are kind of in a place in our practice where we're like, we are going to sit with this within the bounds that we've kind of set, and to kind of support some of the clients who may just really not be able to access higher level of care at that time. But we will say we've sat with these clients in a way where we know that like when it is time and they're ready, they can
will
make that choice. They will go, but maybe it does take a year of sitting with them with them not going. And I always think about the number of times where like, if I had said no, then we would have never gotten there, but we did get there. It just didn't look like the ideal way, ideal kind of picturesque way that we think about those kind of referrals to higher level of care happening.
Right.
So that's something to think about. Yeah.
So kind of a last minute tidbit to walk away with, like I can hear some of you screaming at the screen, like this is really unsafe. Like this person needs to not be in an outpatient level of care. I hear you and I agree. And there are multiple reasons why people cannot or are not willing to access that. One of the reasons may be it is not safe for them their identity, their culture, their race, whatever, their eating disorder, right? It may not be safe. And the other reason, you can see my child's sleep cot in the back. He likes to do sleepovers sometimes. And the other reason may be they are just not ready. And so to me, my mantra is some treatment is better than no treatment. And maybe the purpose you're serving right now in this person's life is containment and safety. And so you need to decide what feels right for you as a provider. And Gina and I are not here to dictate that. And this kind of style may not be right for you. And that is okay.
Yeah. We know as dietitians that every day someone is going without enough food is dangerous, right? Is potentially harming them. It's not like we're forgetting that that is so, so critical, but it also means that like that might also be the best that everyone can do in that moment.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Man.
Well,
awesome.
Grace that surface. We could talk about this for literally 17 more hours.
So we need to wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
I think Tina's language of how to present some of these things was so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us, Tina. And we will connect with y'all in a few weeks.
Yeah. See ya.